Welcome and thank you for all of you to joining us. So we are here together for 1 hour to present you our open source project, open source initiative that we call continuousarchitecture.org. We are 6 maintainers of this open source project who will animate the presentation today. So you can see our name on the screen, who we are. And if you want to know more about us, you can go on our website, and we have more information about us on the website. So, well, our objective for this hour is to present you an overview of our initiative, where it comes from. And then we will talk a little bit about the content of our approach, our approach to develop it, and share also a comparison with our framework to help you to position our initiative with other architecture framework. And then we will give you some concrete example on how we use it through a real case study. And then we will go through some resources and present you some resources available online to animate the community, and we will conclude. I'm not totally sure we will have time for Q&A. Perhaps we will have five minutes for Q&A. In all case, you should have a button on top of your screen, a Q&A button on top of your screen, where you can raise questions during the webinar, and we will do our best to answer to it. And in all case, we will do our best to answer also the question after the webinar. Saying that, I propose we start the presentation, and I will start to explain you the origin at Michelin, in fact. So we start our journey back in 2018, where we realized that in one side we have an aging information system, 12 years old on average, where the technical debt was increasing, with the consequence to have a number of failures operationally, and that was impacting our quality of service and impacting our business. And it also became more and more complex and difficult for us to maintain our information system. And on the other hand, the velocity and the intensity of change were increasing, and it was more and more difficult for us to deliver the feature that our business expected. And it was more and more difficult for us also to upgrade our technical component and to maintain our information system. So basically, that was our wake-up call. And we thought that we have to change our delivery to be able to continuously modernize our information system, in fact. So to change our delivery. And if we take the architecture perspective, we thought that from an architect, it means that we need to continuously take important decision. If we all agree that at the end, architecting is about taking a decision. And at that time, our architecture process had not really changed since at least, I think, 20 years. And it was a centralized process, a centralized decision approach, and it became a bottleneck for the delivery team. So we need to work on it, and we thought that we have to provide a new architecting process, a new operating model for architecting, to develop the autonomy of the team and to decentralize as much as we can the decision, while, of course, in the same time, keeping the consistency and the integrity of our information system as a whole. And so this new operating model, architecture operating model, we call it internally continuous architecture. we take also the opportunity of this effort to redesign our process to build it to be able to be compatible with agile delivery, because it was the norm at that time. All our teams used agile to deliver their release, and it's still the case. So that was really our starting point. And when we say that we have a new operating model to redesign, to rethink, concretely, what does it mean? In fact, it means that we rethink our role around architecture. We redesign also some rituals to animate architecture. We provide new practices, new toolkit, and to design this new artifact, I would say we start with some key principles that I have listed here. And this key principle was really here to develop, at least for us, to develop team autonomy. So first, we thought that architecting need to become a team activity and not just an activity for some happy few in our organization, as we want to decentralize the activity as much as we can. And the consequence of that is that we had to develop architecture skills beyond just people who have the role of architect in the organization. Obviously, when we talk about autonomy and dependence, we have to reduce the dependency and come with the right system of the right boundary for the system and align the delivery with that. And so we work on that. And also, as we want to decentralize the decision, it was important for us that we bring clarity around decision, and we share broadly the decision. So just a list of few key principles that we use to design this new operating model at Michelin. And so, Jérôme, can you tell us on your side in Société Générale where you start?
Yes, thank you, Thierry. So I'm Jérôme Regnier from Société Générale, SG. Between 2018 and 2020, the SG developed the Open Agile architecture standard within the Open Group and under the leadership of DXC. And after releasing the draft Open Agile architecture standard mid-2019, we were pleased with the outcome, but we felt that we would need an extension to operationalize agile architecture practices. And at the same time, we met Michelin to share our respective experience on architecture. We were used to exchange with our peers on a regular basis. And not surprisingly, we SG found that we had the same needs as Michelin on IS architecture, but SG also wanted to extend agile practices to the business side, I would say, with, for example, the job to be done concept, which we had just discovered with the Open Agile architecture standard, and with a simplified version of domain-driven design for business. We then decided to join the Continuous Architecture Initiative for two main reasons. Of course, to join a community of practice, it's fresh air, new blood, and so forth, and to improve our toolbox of agile architecture practices to develop an approach that is really operationalizable and really open. And now Frédéric will give us the key messages, the takeaways of continuous architecture.
Frédéric, thank you, Jérôme. Now that Thierry and Jérôme have discussed the genesis of continuous architecture, we will present with Jérôme what continuous architecture is. Unlike some popular architecture frameworks, continuous architecture is not designed by committee, and it evolves on a continuous basis. So it's not frozen, in some standard, it's not going to evolve for a few years. Our approach feeds on the principle of engineering, and we follow a scientific approach, meaning that we start from the problem we observe in our organizations. We formulate hypotheses, assumptions about why these problems occur. To some extent, it's very close to what Lynn would call root cause analysis. Those hypotheses, those models help us make prediction, and we need to verify experimentally if those predictions yield the result that we are expecting. And that's the way we capture those experiments is through case study that are sort of summary of the learnings that we've gathered. And the principle that we have established are really built upon that process. Next slide, please. So I'm going to summarize very rapidly 4 key learnings. I will do it rapidly because the case study that Olivier and Jérémie will present is going to illustrate them. First of all, project to product, that principle is not new and it's becoming very popular. But if you look at the construction website, you will notice that that shift is really at the center of what this architecture is. And looking further at the site, you can go to the manifesto, and you will see that manifesto, for instance, tenets such as see the system as a whole, or you are responsible also for the operability of the system you design and you develop, and so forth. That facilitates the shift to a product mentality and organization. If I go to outcome rather than output, it means that we also need to shift from inside out thinking to outside in thinking, meaning that we need to start from the definition of value. We need to understand what matters to clients and users, and that translates into moving from a sort of feature factory syndrome. Many let's say product owner in well-known agile at scale framework are mostly focused on prioritizing those features rather than steering from the perspective of the value that is delivered to customers. So here what matters is are the features we're developing delivering the customer experience that we expect? Is our product successful, and does it produce the expected result, especially also economic result? And I think Olivier will allude to the fact that some teams that operate in that way, their success depends on really the outcomes and not only on what they produce. Next slide, please. When we talk about those product teams, we all understand that they need to move fast. They need to deliver in an agile manner. But too often, what we call here the health of dependency, slow their work because they depend on too many other teams. Agile framework that only manages dependency without addressing the problem of reducing those dependency actually do not solve the problem of autonomy of those agile teams. And modularity is also important for other things, such as independently deployable unit, which is important in CI/CD pipeline. So the idea is that the architecture approach should tell you how to achieve modularity, and the case study that Olivier and Jérémie will present will demonstrate how we do that. And last but not the least, it's not sufficient to design your intentional architecture in a modular manner. You need to make sure that it's going to be implemented that way. And the inverse Conway maneuver, popularized with team topologies, tells you that if the structure of your organization is not consistent with the structure of your intentional architecture, probably organization will win. Therefore, it's important to align both. The case study will also demonstrate that it's not new. What is new is combining modularity and the inverse Conway maneuver in a pragmatic and consistent way of organizing the operating model. I will now ask Jérôme to share with us a few learnings on the existing framework that we've studied. Jérôme?
Yes, a few words on existing frameworks. This slide is based on the results of one of the 6 workshops conducted during the Continuous Architecture event in October. We won't have, of course, enough time in 2 minutes to give you a complete restitution of this workshop, but just consider the diagram. We can see 2 axes, agile and operationalizable. And the goal is to articulate the architecture frameworks in this quadrant. So Archimate is more of a notation, a meta model without a method. So it was therefore been put outside the quadrant on the left. The same goes for agile at scale frameworks, such as SAFe, because they don't really address architecture. SAFe, for example, industrializes dependencies, but management, but does not seem to be very useful in the current version 5 for minimizing them. For some of us, enterprise architects, TOGAF has been for more than 20 years the worldwide reference for enterprise architecture, but it has grown old. It didn't address sufficiently different changes that happen in and around IT in the last decade. Just consider questions about digitalization, agile, and cloud computing, and so forth. The 10th edition of TOGAF is an appreciable improvement. It adopts some agile ideas, but it remains requirement-centric. You can see it when you see the architecture development method. TOGAF references the Open Agile Architecture Standard, which provides a body of knowledge about agile architecture, but it needs to be operationalized, as I said before, beyond the series guides of the open group. And that's why and that's what we are trying to do within the Continuous Architecture Initiative. And now I'm going to leave the floor to Olivier Jauze from Michelin and Jérémie Grodziski, who is, among other, a French expert of domain-driven design, to illustrate what we said with Thierry, Fraudet, and Frédéric, with case studies which demonstrate architecture for flow.
Thank you,
Olivier.
Jérôme. So we selected one case study at Michelin. So we have a data platform that we use to support the service offers we propose to our customers on the connected mobility. So basically that the data platform is plugged to thousands of IoT sensors, ingesting real-time data, streaming them, enriching them, and proposing insights such as your tire is going to be worn out in 2 months. You should change your driver behavior because it will help you to save fuel. So basically, the data platform is maintained by a team of 50 people split into 4 sub-teams, all collaborating on the same source code repository. Early 2020, we started to notice delivery issues. So the backlog of that team in terms of work in progress kept increasing up to reaching probably what is a world record, 50 plus work in progress items in parallel. Surprisingly, the time to market of that team decreased over time, and at some point, the team was so buried under constant change and new items in the backlog, they started to develop a new syndrome, which was replying no to every new item coming in, saying that was not in their scope, despite it being fully in the right scope. If you move to the next slide. So we decided to do a diagnostic, and for that we use a couple of toolkits provided by Continuous Architecture. So it's a set of workshops helping the team to reflect on their issues. We find out that despite using the microservices style, we built a monolith on top of microservices, which means that we had to help the team to refocus on smaller pieces of the product because the monolith was too big to be mastered. Remember the 4 teams I introduced the slide before, where for each and every new item in the backlog, they were lacking autonomy, meaning that they would depend on another team, or even worse, transverse people such as architects and DevOps, and that was slowing down their flow of delivery. So we looked at what we had in stock for in the continuous architecture toolkit, and we selected domain-driven design and team topologies together. Domain-driven design to realign the architecture of the product, and team topology to align the architecture of the team on the product. And that's one thing to say we select those de facto standard on the market. That's a different thing to know how to use it, and that's where continuous architecture brings what we call recipes, which is, if you are in this context, this is the way we use DDD and team topologies. So we are publishing those through toolkits. And I will let you, Jérémie, explain how DDD was used.
Yes, thank you, Olivier. So yes, actually DDD, so domain-driven design is a major part of continuous architecture. And the main contribution of DDD is the concept of bounded context that helps decomposing information systems around the language criteria, or to put it more simply, to decompose the domain concept behind words and that are used by people. And so to do that, the main habit of DDD's practitioners is to run event storming workshops to explore the domain, to choose the best decomposition around the usage, the language, and so on. So what are event storming? So event storming are collaborative workshops that are centered around the concept of domain event, and that we use to explore a domain and to later on decompose a set of domains into different subsystems, different subdomains. So you can find also some materials for running event storming session on the continuous architecture website, by the way. And so for the ultimate platform, contrary to what I said, the context map you see was not done with event storming workshops, but instead using the dataset and the consumers of the dataset and their usage to decompose in different subdomains, because they were already known at that time. So to illustrate what we said with Olivier, we will zoom on 2 different contexts. So if you can go to the next slide. Okay, thank you. So we will zoom on the lifecycle and supply chain relationship. So we will have one of this context is the tire lifecycle. that publish every event that occurs for a particular tire. And one of these contexts that use the life cycle is a supply chain context. And in that context, there is a use case. So whenever tires are loaded into a truck, they want to ensure that the loaded tires on the truck are the good references for the related customer orders. So here, we can notice that there are two contexts using the same word, so a tire. But in the lifecycle context, tire is a particular physical individual of a tire. Instead, in the supply chain context, so the tire is a reference, and also there is they had to enrich the tire reference with the customer orders, the truck that will have a load of tires, the conveyor belt that will bring the tires into the truck, and so on. So this is a textbook case of what bounded contexts are. We have the same word, tire, but with very different meanings in different contexts used by different people. So here, this is an illustration of what we want to do with architecture. So we want to align the product and its architecture on the usage. And what Olivier will show you, we will then align the organization on the architecture we want. And so Olivier will talk about the benefits we saw with that case study and decomposition work in different contexts.
Next one, please.
Yes, next one.
So once the decomposition was done, leveraging DDD and continuous architecture, we had to align the team organization to that new architecture of the product. So not a surprise, team topology jump in, and it was easy because we decomposed first to map the different data domains that Jérémie quickly presented to you on a stream-aligned team, or what we call feature teams. In order to reduce the cognitive loads on those teams and help them to focus on the problem to solve for their users, we also created two platform teams. So those stream-aligned teams could use their services in self-service and complete autonomy. On top of this platform approach, we also deployed a new interaction mode, which was facilitation, focused on data science, because most of those teams are doing data science. So in order to help those teams bootstrapping on data science practices, the data science platform team also provide facilitation services. So we deployed that 18 months ago, and we have many different feedbacks. So I will be sharing with you those feedbacks. Those are not mine. It's coming from the team directly. So breaking down the monolith into smaller pieces help the team to focus on a smaller scope, something that they can master. And because we use DDD to really decompose it and try to minimize dependencies, we ended up with less, dependencies between teams, which means a bigger autonomy and faster delivery for each and every team. We took the opportunity to reinforce the you built it, you run it approach, which is something very useful to optimize the way you support your product, because there is no transition to be done between build and run team. That's the same team, and it also makes the teams closer to the end users. But let's face it, it's easier said than done, because managing build and run activities into the same team is not straightforward. And one of the, I would say, the impact we identify, I said previously that we had some transverse roles, around architects and DevOps. So DevOps are key to build and run your products. And instead of relying on transverse people, we decided to put those people into each and every stream-aligned team. And we wanted to avoid having people working on different teams. So we had to staff new people in the different teams. So we estimate that in terms of number of people working on the product, we increased 10%, but that investment was worth making because we are now delivering faster. So it's more people to deliver way faster. Last thing I want to mention is that that new team topology also helps to increase business agility. Why? Because if we have to explore a new topic, basically it is as easy as popping up a new team. You create a new team, you explore that topic. Either that topic fits the market and you keep that team long running, or it does not fit the market and then you simply shut down the team. So the last thing I want to say is that in order to land on that team topology, again, we have developed a recipe to lead team topology workshops. You can go to the LinkedIn page and you will see that we have published an article to explain how we are conducting those team topologies with the team themselves, helping them to identify what's best in terms of team architecture. And I will give the mic to Nicolas, I think.
You are on mute, Nicolas.
Thank you, Olivier, for that. And yes, I will share with you some of the resources and tools we have developed so far in order to sustain this open source initiative. Our goal is to spread widely continuous architecture with the community and with yourself, we hope. And to do so, we have at our disposal so far different tools. One is a website, continuousarchitecture.org. That is a way for people to understand our initiative and to have access to some content. I will explain later on. And of course, we have this LinkedIn page now, continuous architecture, that we would like to share with the community and a way to interact and to inform of things such as the event, this event. And to contribute to the resources and to the content, to the toolkit, we have a Slack and a GitHub that will enable whoever to contribute to be part of the initiatives and propose some content and to work on some topics. So next, maybe Thierry, to explain a little bit about the site first. The continuousarchitecture.org site. You have in this site different items. We share in the site some ideas or convictions as we share today that are available. For instance, there is a manifesto we have developed. You can access in the website that highlights the key points, in our opinion, that really are important when we think in architecture in this complex digital world. And a part of the manifesto, time by time, we will feed the site by the case studies, as the one we just Olivier and Jérémie just exposed. Will be, I think, part of this sharing website content soon. But if you go in the website, you have different stories of how we have used practices, put in place rituals, and empower people in a continuous way to resolve issues, resolve problems. So the website is something with to share information widely. If you go to the next slide, Thierry. Yep. For instance, if we zoom on some aspect of the website, for the role, we are convinced that we have to have it's a team activity to lead architecture. Nevertheless, in some organizations, we have to empower people in some aspect of the that are essential. And here in the website, you can find some ideas of or example of typical organization and role that has been done typically here in Michelin. So that's like guideline or some baseline for people on doing architecture. You can find in the side as the role. The next, maybe Thierry, it's an example about the practices. As we have already mentioned domain-driven design, but not only maybe architecture decision record, architecture runway are some practices that are on the market that make sense for us and that have to be combined wisely. For instance, with team topology, fitness function, or some aggregation of practice that we name Scoping 360, that are with this aim for the Scoping 360 to align widely the people, not only the architect, but the team and the business about the vision, the product, and the architecture, and in a global way. So all these practices we have already experimented, and we are convinced that would be a good things for to resolve some issue. We try to sum up here in the website and to select the practices and to propose some way of leading that with some poster, as you can see on the right of this slide. A part of this, of course, empowerment of people practices are key, but to have a complete operating model that is actionable and operable, we need rituals, we need a typical way of collaboration within people leading architecture topics. So here we have as well capitalized and proposed capitalization of how to organize some ceremony of architecture on a typical workshop. Still with these aims of operability. And a part of the website, you can there is of course the LinkedIn that we will in the coming months use to inform and to be informed and to be connected with new people that are interested in the topics. Don't hesitate to join and to contribute to the LinkedIn and ask questions, give insight to the community in LinkedIn. And next, Thierry, as I mentioned at the beginning, we have these two tools that are in place. And please let us know if you want to join us. But there is a Slack that is a way to really work more deeply and exchange about the best practices and a way to animate working groups on some specific topic. As Jérôme mentioned, in October we have a first community session that was in a Société Générale with some architects from different companies, and we for instance discuss about architecture decision record as a key element for many companies to implement in a good way. So we decided, and now in Slack there is a new working groups around these topics and maybe new events that will be dedicated to this aspect of continuous architecture. So there is a Slack and there is a GitHub that is in place. If you go to the next slide, Thierry, that is as we want to set up and to time by time develop the initiatives and the content. we have in place a GitHub environment that will enable to whoever want to contribute to propose things to add to the continuous architecture.org site and to enlarge and to make some new content for continuous architecture. So this is nowadays the toolkit in place, the website, LinkedIn to interact and to be informed, and the Slack GitHub ready to contribute and to work with us.
Okay, thank you, Nicolas. So we now come to the end of our, I would say, formal presentation. So we hope that it helps you to discover our continuous architecture project and raise some interest. If you want to go a step further, we have a Start Your Journey page in our website that can help you to jump to test or explore a continuous architecture in your context. If you go to the website, you will see that we are just starting to release some of our architecture toolkit, and our intention is really to release more in the coming weeks, months. But I mean, we are looking also for contribution and for help to enrich the toolkit. So if you are interested to contribute, you are more than welcome, of course. So Nicolas just shared with you the different resources we put online to exchange, to collaborate, basically to grow together around this new way of doing architecture. I just posted in the chat the invitation link if you want to join the Slack. It should work, I hope. And to conclude, also, I would like to mention that we have a meetup plan. Well, when I say plan, we know that we'll organize the end of January. We don't have right the precise date, but we will organize our first meetup around architecture decision record. Basically, that was a request from the community, and so stay tuned. We will post soon the precise date and the schedule for the meetup. Saying that, we are now at the end of our formal presentation, so we still have a few minutes. If some of you have some question, we can take it now. We can spend a few minutes now, and we can also take it afterward if needed. I don't know if some of you have some question.
Well, there is no question in the Q&A section, and I don't see any question in the conversation pane.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was crystal clear.
Yes, for James, yes, the recording will be available in a way or for that.
Yeah. So probably we will put the link in linked event page, the link with the recording. Okay, no problem, James.
So,
hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes, we heard you.
Okay, yeah. Thanks. You had a question about at the start. You mentioned the fact that you try to get your teams to do all services, or you build it, you run it essentially. For you, did you do that first before you decided to go into continuous architecture? Was it sort of a natural progression to do both at the same time?
Olivier, you want to answer?
Yes, maybe I will take it. So The case study I mentioned was one, if not the first one, to adopt continuous architecture. So at the very beginning of that initiative, we decided to adopt the ability to run it, but in a flavor that is not exactly the same than today, because as I said, we had 4 teams, and the people running the product were transverse to those 4 teams. So there was a run team, if you will, into the overall organization. We took the opportunity to decompose the monolith and use team topologies to put back into each and every squad the responsibility to run what they are building. So we were already in a ability to run it way, but we pushed it a little bit further. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, most of it. And so for people to adapt continuous architecture, do you think then that it's essential that the teams been build it, you run it in mode? Because I know, for example, strategic now, that's not always practical.
Okay. So we are not requiring strictly to be in the ability to run it. Part of continuous architecture, we believe in the product approach that promote the ability to run it. But let's face it, not at least in our context, not each and every team is able to operate its own product. So we don't make it as a mandatory criteria to adopt continuous architecture. If a team is able to run its own product, that's easier. It fits perfectly well. If they are not able to, it means that we cannot achieve the fast flow that Team Topology is advocating for, because we will be having a transition to a running team. So no, it's not mandatory. It's better because continuous structure is built on the product approach, but it's not mandatory.
Okay, thanks.
I also see in the chat a question. How do you sell the approach to management? Do you need a sponsor from the business?
On what? On the continuous architecture? On the case study I presented with Jérémie?
I'm not sure. Eric, if you are around, maybe you can clarify your question.
Let's take the hypothesis that that's on the case study. So if we are speaking about the case study, yes, we had to convince management first, but it was not so hard because basically the team was suffering. We observed people starting to leave because too many things going on, things in parallel, lack of autonomy. So it was easy to show that the performance of the team, despite having good people in the team, was slowing down. So we said we have to do something. We have to sit and work with the team and change something. And possibly we told up very early that possibly it would mean staffing new people, and that could sound a bit not intuitive, especially for management who is looking for optimization everywhere. That's the reason why we put in place those transfers roles. But we were in a such situation with a slow delivery that they agreed to let it happen. But we had to go and ask them first.
And I see that Eric complete a little bit his question, so I can answer at least for the Michelin case. So my answer will be in the Michelin case. So in our case, it was more a bottom-up approach, but I would say with a strong sponsorship from our CIO and our chief architect, in fact. But basically, we deploy. While we build and deploy continuous architecture inside Michelin with a bottom-up approach, basically. Starting from the ground, starting from what we experiment with the different team, in fact.
I think, Thierry, we call it the organic approach.
Yeah, we call it
the website.
Organic approach because, sure, it's a bottom-up approach, but we still have a strong sponsorship from, I would say, some 1 or 2 leaders in our organization, but understand that we will have to change, that we have to change. Okay, so we still have 5 minutes. If we can take one or two more questions, don't hesitate.
Or maybe you can share in the chat if you want us to work on something specific in terms of toolkit practices, whatever problems you have, so we can focus our effort on what makes sense for you.
Hello, everyone. Andy speaking. A question, please, regarding scoping 360. Is it part of your toolkit?
Well, we just have, I would say, so for all scoping 360, it's an internal, I would say, methodology a set of workshops inside Michelin that helps team to frame what they have to build, I would say. And so part of this set of workshops, there is workshops dedicated to architecture. And so we have released this part in the open source website for now. But until we can discuss to release the whole methodologies.
Thanks.
And to complete maybe the response of to Eric about how to sell the approach to management, what I've seen in other contexts is a good way is to ask yourself about what are the structural pain points in the architecture practice we have, and maybe the bottleneck effect, maybe some aspect about modularity or things or speed or some symptom you may have, and based on it to really adapt the continuous architecture conviction beliefs to have a shared vision, and after experiment and with an organic maybe approach try to respond to this pain point, but with the architect of each of the area being the change agent and being the key actors to be convinced about all the vision and all the toolkit of continuous could be applied in its context. So bottom up is key, but as well to be clear about the structural pain point and a shared vision is something maybe to work at the beginning to find the good journey, to define the good journey.
And I see a question from Jim Doss, and I say hi, Jim. Regarding ontology, we don't have a lot of material on that yet, but you see the work that we are doing on data meshes and also work on data spaces, data sharing ecosystem gives us material that we could use to create new material in continuous architecture on those topics. So don't hesitate to reach out to us if you'd like to know more about it, and possibly if you'd like to cooperate, enriching continuous architecture on this aspect.
Yeah.
Thanks, Frédéric.
Okay. One. Do we close the session? It's lunchtime for French people, so. Okay, so last question, and then we will close. What are the prerequisites for an organization that wants to implement the CA capability? Well, I would say they want first I don't know how to say in English, l'envie to change, how you say?
Wish.
The wish to change their operating. So a case for change somewhere. I mean, it's not just changing our practice, why we want to change that. I mean, for us at Michelin, it was clear at the beginning, and this is what I tried to explain to you. Our architecting process, we are becoming a bottleneck in our delivery, and so we have a case for change. So I don't know, guys, if you have other elements.
It's not a prerequisite per se, but through, as I said, continuous architecture is deeply linked with the product approach. So if you don't have a product transformation, it makes it creates some tension, because everything we are doing is related to products. The way we name architect role, there is a product architect. We don't speak about projects anymore, we speak about products. So I'm not saying you should not start if you are in project, if you are using EVD projects, but it's easier to start if you do the product transformation in parallel.
Okay, guys, thank you. Thank you, everybody, to join us for this first webinar. Don't hesitate also to send us your feedback on the webinar, what you have liked, what you have disliked, and what to improve. It will help us for the next one. And with that, I propose we close the session. Thank you all. Bye.